what's on the menu or the program for this weekend?
So the program opens with Composites, which is a solo that I created with a writer, Jay McClear, and a composer, Julian Martlew. Jay came to me with a text, which is also called Composites, that it's a long text and it deals with rhythm and sort of qualities of sound in a really interesting way. And he wanted to play with the shape and rhythm of the sound rather than the meaning of the language.
Okay.
So I created a phonetic movement vocabulary that then informed this whole piece. And it was really fun because so basically I made a movement or a gesture for each sound, not syllable, but each phoneme.
Right.
Yeah. But then, you know, when you speak phonetically, you don't say each sound, right? They get truncated. So then I had this really fantastic puzzle of linking these gestures into movement phrases.
Right, into the phrase as it was being spoken.
And trying to imitate the rhythm of his language with my own body.
Right.
So it was a really complex problem. It's a very, very dense solo. It's very dense. But it was really exciting because it pushed me to do things that are not, the Catherineisms, because I certainly have my own movement vocabulary at this point, and it pushed me really far outside of my own comfort zone and my own creative habits. So that was really fantastic. It's really rewarding. So I just performed as a solo to the sound score by Julian Martlew, which includes some of the actual text.
Okay.
So that's how we open. Then we go back in time to the beginning of 2009 when I was making very, very personal, very emotional, very Graham-influenced work. And you'll see a solo called Breeze, which there are excerpts of online, of me performing it. It's going to be performed here by Sarah Lustbader, who is a former student of mine, now a good friend and dancer in my company. And it's a really aggressive, it's only 7 minutes long, it's music by Cloud Dead, but it's really kind of heart-wrenching, and it really came out of a very particular emotional experience. Then we jump forward to a duet that I made last summer with a friend of mine, Echo Gustafsson. She and I danced together at the Graham School and in Pearl Lang's company in like the mid-90s, so we go back. She now lives in Santa Fe, and I love that we have this long arching dance relationship. It's really wonderful to dance with her because we just know each other so well on so many different levels. And we made a piece, it's a duet that was inspired by a quote by Rilke, where he said that even between the closest people there remain infinite distances. And so we were thinking as we made this about relationships and space between people and how you understand people. And then I invited two incredibly talented musicians and good friends of mine, Kane Mathis and Julian Martlew, to create music for it, which they're playing live. And Kane plays the oud, which is a Middle Eastern, it's like a lute, a Middle Eastern guitar. And Julian plays the dobro, which is Polish, then Hawaiian. We sort of know it from blues and southern United States, sort of been all around the world. It's a kind of slide instrument, like a slide guitar. So two stringed instruments with very different sounds from very different parts of the world, which come together in this really interesting way in terms of thinking about distance and the space between people. So those two guys are on stage while Echo and I are doing this duet, which we interwove with those musicians. And then there's little intermissions. People can take a breather.
A moment.
And then there are two more pieces after intermission. One is called Chromatic Dispersions, and that was actually inspired by a costume designer friend of mine who had this idea to basically web the body. He wanted to create these fans that unfolded between our arms and our legs, and then gave me these fans and was like, here, what can you do? And I was like, I don't know, because I can't bend my leg. What can I do? Figure that out. And
But you did.
I did. And sort of like Jay's text and this phonetic movement vocabulary, I loved being given a really hard assignment by a fellow artist. These fans, Chromatic Dispersions was another really difficult assignment given to me by a fellow artist. And originally it was performed by myself and Sarah Lustbader. Now it's going to be performed by Sarah and Echo. It's a really interesting, it's very strange. It's very sculptural, very abstract. They make a really interesting sound. Again, the music is performed live by Kane Mathis on the oud. And I enjoy the piece, but it's definitely a strange, abstract quietude in relation to the rest of the rest of the program is much more narrative and emotional. Right. And then we close the program with
Watch it now.
Exactly. There we go. With Segments, which is a piece that I created again with Kane Mathis. This time he's playing the kora, which is an African harp. It's a big African harp. And we performed the piece at the award show in Seattle in 2009, in which we were finalists. And this is, I also collaborated with a lighting designer, so the piece takes place in this narrow shaft of light. And with a costume designer, so there's a costume that has these sort of tendrils that extend from my body as I move backwards. So it's, I consider it a duet because I actually danced with Kane at some point, but it was definitely a larger collaborative piece. And again, that solo is inspired by a sort of standard Buddhist saying, which is that the obstacle is the path. And it's very much about trying to move forward and running into the same wall over and over, and how you have to, you know, maybe hit your head into it so many times that you realize you need to just go a different direction. Right. And then, you know, like things start to change, you know. So it's a really intense solo to go through, because I definitely made it to be a sort of exorcism. And to help myself grapple with very specific obstacles that I was dealing with in 2009. And it's interesting to bring it back now because the obstacles have changed, but certainly there are still obstacles. So
has your relationship to that piece changed as you perform it? Like from the creation of it and doing it then and being in that space, and then having the distance from it to come back to it and go like, oh.
Yeah, well, I think it is the, I've been saying this actually to a lot of people lately, the best and worst part of being a dancer is that our muscle memory is so intense. And every time you go back, it totally threw me. It totally threw me back into this other emotional space.